Okay, so my name is Karla Cornejo Villavicencio. People who don't know me sometimes try to call me Karla Cornejo Villavicencio, but my parents have never called me by my name, Karla. They call me Nena. So Karla is my American name. And people sometimes try to form intimacy bonds with me by rolling their R's, but there is more to community than that. I am from New York. I'm from Brooklyn and Queens, and I'm an essayist and an occasional writer of fiction, as well as an occasional screenwriter. And I've been compared to Joan Didion, Renata Adler, and Jamaica Kincaid. I've also been called one of the voices of my generation. Just kidding, I haven't. Before the last few months, where my book, The Undocumented Americans, was listed as one of Obama's favorite books, which was significant because the epigraph of my book was in Spanish, fuck ICE. And I became the first undocumented writer to be nominated as a finalist for the National Book Award, which happened because my publisher, the legendary Chris Jackson, wrote a letter asking there to be an exception made for me because the rules did not allow non-citizens to be nominated. The focus on me as a writer in media and in promo and everywhere in the conversation was that I was a poor kid who was born in a literal ditch and who somehow made my way to Harvard. And that's what gave me the right and the and the opportunity to write a book. And when non-immigrant or not Latinx writers, when citizen readers read my book, they complimented me by saying that I was brave and that I was authentic and that I was real and raw and honest. And they always thanked me for my story as if I was not contractually obligated to hand in the fucking thing. So the Latinx canon, which is something that I have been reading all my life and studying. I'm finishing up my PhD at Yale and, studied Latino literature with the first tenured Latino professor at Harvard. It has had to face a lot of difficulties in trying to sort of make it on its own because of interference from Hollywood and also because of what sells. And we know that numbers are important both in Hollywood and in the publishing industry. And so they've shared representational ethics and they've shared aesthetics from each other, which has resulted in caricatures and entire representations. So some of the things I'm talking about are, you see inspiring stories of dreamers, you see endless conversations about the American dream, you see hardworking folks who are like scrunched over and they have calloused hands and their skin is browned, and there are so many ways of describing brown skin that are related to food. And there's this focus on like a connection to the land, so that when I'm like, oh, well, I'm from Brooklyn, like I don't like being outside, I love being in air-conditioned hotels, people are like, you're just colonized. And so I think that a lot of that has to do with like a fixation with Gloria Anzaldúa and a refusal to move past that, you know? And so I took all of that with me and I said, I think it's time to do something different. And there have been other authors who have been previously undocumented or are currently undocumented, or who are children of immigrants, like Jenny Zhang, Marcelo Hernandez Castillo, Mary H.K. Choi, who are doing the work and are doing interesting things with form and content. So my book, this is my book. My book is a collection of essays where I travel across the country. Original publicity copy said that I was evading arrest at every turn, which is not true. I probably evaded arrest at every turn when I was young and I was in the hood, and people said, don't wear that necklace because it looks like you're in a gang. But honestly, I traveled to places where I felt safe traveling to when I was on DACA. I wrote my lawyer's name in Sharpie on my hand. And basically I went to not the South. And so there's not a lot of plot in my book. What I did is I chased after stories. So like I was always interested in the xenophobic claim that undocumented immigrants are charges on the healthcare system, and that we just go to emergency rooms for like everything, and that we're like destroying the healthcare system. And so I decided to just take a look at that story by going to Miami, which has a horrible healthcare system. And I was also, I hate the fact that like, um, looking into like holistic medicine and herbal medicine and like alternative medicines, there's a lot of interest in that in the undocumented community and in immigrant communities. And like all due respect, or respect is due, but some people have the choice to do that, like moon juice and stuff. I take moon juice because I like feeling like an influencer, but there's also like predation in the immigrant community because we don't have health insurance. So when you have cancer in a lot of states, like are literally told to go home and die. So I went to Miami and I investigated that. Um, and there's not like a plot. These are essays connected by my desire to talk to just random undocumented people. I don't talk to dreamers because I feel like dreamers are great. Some of my best friends are dreamers, but they have occupied such an outsized space in the American stage. And so I just talk to random people, you know, housekeepers, day laborers, janitors, and I just profile them. Like imagine like a New Yorker profile where you spend as much time on like a housekeeper as you do on, I don't know, whoever Ronan Farrow focuses on, except this is not an investigation. And so usually when publishing or Hollywood writes about immigrants, you get stories that are thrilling, like border crossing stories that are super scary, or horrific trauma, horrific killings, narco killings, or the inspirational stories of dreamers that end at graduation. So I went to Harvard, I went to Yale. I've done a lot of things that impress my parents and probably impress people who are impressed by things. And I can tell you that the camera keeps rolling after that. And things don't really change that much because there's intergenerational trauma, there's intergenerational poverty. And, you know, I'm here in New Haven, Connecticut, looking into the snow out my window, but everyone I love is back in the hood and they're all undocumented. And nobody really cares to talk about that in the media. They just focus on the picture of the dreamer in the cap and gown. And so my focus is to look beyond that. So one of the stories I talk about in my book is I talked to a man, like an elderly man who was really, really quiet. And he was in Flint, Michigan. And yeah, I was there to cover the water crisis thing. But when we were talking on the phone for like many weeks, and he told me that, you know, there were rations for water bottles, and you needed a state ID. And as an undocumented man, he did not have a state ID. But when he was able to like drive around and find places that weren't so uptight, he used his water bottles to give water to his pit bulls. And the way he described his pit bulls was just so beautiful, because I also am so scared of human beings, but I love my dog. And I love all dogs. And I just related to him on that level. And I'm like, when someone thinks about undocumented immigrants, or when someone thinks of illegal aliens stealing people's jobs, do they think that this man was depriving himself of water during the Flint water crisis because he was giving water bottles to his dog, to his pit bulls? One was a mom and one was a baby. So, I mean, that's the stories that I was telling, which aren't thrilling stories, but, you know, I also wrote about day laborers. And so day laborers have a bad reputation, just like Taylor Swift had at one point. And I befriended them. I'm queer, and most of my friends are straight men, for reasons I'm working out in therapy. And they were mean to me in like a hazing kind of way, but they were also super protective of me. And we hung out a lot. And they told me the story of this one man who's the only person in the book whose real name I used. And I changed people's names and identifying characteristics because I started writing the book the day after Trump won the election. And you gotta understand, this felt like an ethnic cleansing, and there was proof to back that up. And so I changed everyone's names. And there was a lot of illegal activity that I was documenting. And if someone subpoenaed me, I was not gonna snitch. So, I used his real name because he was dead. And so basically everyone knew him or knew of him, but they didn't want to talk about him. And that's because day laborers are very protective of their reputation. And he died in a basement alone, drunk during Hurricane Sandy. That's not great PR for day laborers. And so what I did is I talked to everyone about him, and I looked at stories in local papers in Mexico about his family and about his story and about his childhood. And what I was terrified, and part of it is because my background is Latin American, and the stories that I grew up hearing were about the disappearances in Argentina and Chile and across the continent and in the Dominican Republic and across the islands. You don't want to fucking go in the middle of the night where nobody knows where you are and where you don't get mourned and where people forget you. Like, that's terrifying to me. That's my worst nightmare. And so what I did is that I changed his ending. And I used something called magical realism, which is a genre that many people from Garcia Marquez to Toni Morrison have worked with. And part of it was a moral imperative where I thought, if I'm someone who has borderline personality disorder, and I have, PTSD from migration and growing up undocumented and, all sorts of things. And I thought, if I'm having a bad day, I'm super high functioning. I could be the poster child for the American dream. If I'm having a bad day and I drown during a hurricane, and there's an autopsy done on my body, and the results of what's in my bloodstream, the substances in my bloodstream, are made public, and the right and white supremacists go with that, what conclusions can they draw from that? They're going to say I'm a bad immigrant. They're going to say the things they have said against people who have been hurt by American hetero white supremacy. Michael Brown, Matthew Shepard, he was no angel. Those exact words were said about both of them. And they would have been said about me because I would have been an easy target. Like, look at this shiny little dreamer. She was no angel because I had a lot of shit in my blood if I had died. And so I wanted to change his story because I was a writer and I had that right. And so what I did was I did research, and I found out that he loved soft animals. And he was squatting in a basement, and I did research to make as many facts that were real present there. And what I changed about the fact of his ending was that he did not die alone, but that he died with an injured squirrel that he found. And I wrote the sentence, "No creature should have to die alone." And I use the word creature because there's such division in our communities in America across American citizens and immigrants and across different racial and ethnic groups. And I am terrified by that. And no creature should have to die or suffer alone, which is something that has been happening during the COVID pandemic. So this is something that's not often done in nonfiction, but is certainly done in experimental ethnographies. And I'm trained in anthropology as well. And it's certainly done in the Latin American genre of testimonio, which resulted from, the long periods of state violence and impunity from narco violence in Latin America. And to me, magical realism is more than a genre. It is the land witnessing our pain, because our people know that the police and the justice system and the judges, they're not on our side. They have never been, and they never will be on our side. And the question of whether God will make justice happen is open-ended. And so what magical realism means to me is that when impunity abounds, the land will bear witness to the pain. And maybe revenge isn't always the answer, but being witnessed is enough. In the continents where disappearances completely wrecked generations, the land bearing witness means a lot. So if there is a place where there has been bloodshed, where there has been a massacre of indigenous peasants, and everyone has forgotten, but if someone grows a tree, and if you bite into the plums that the tree grows, and there is blood instead of juice inside those plums, that is a testimony to what has happened in that land. And so that is why I wanted to use elements of magical realism in my journalism. And I warn readers when I use magical realism, and my editor was brave enough to let me experiment with genre. And I thought, what better fucking time to experiment with genre than the Trump administration? And I created this kind of new genre that engraved our ethnic cleansing upon the American soil, and it's punk rock as hell. Long live Kurt Cobain. Thank you.